Scutt, good morning. Good morning, Brooke. And thank you so much for being on our meeting this morning to share past, present, and future topics with our agents. You know, in New York, we are getting closer to phase two. You know, we've been non-essential as real estate professionals for some time now. And New York is in phase one now. We're about to get to phase two. So hopefully you can give us some hope as we get closer to opening. But we are going to talk about past, present, and future because you have quite a bit of history, you know, in the real estate space. So first, again, thank you so much. If you could just tell us a few snippets about you, and then we're going to get right into that's covering the past, you know, how you got into the business.
Sure.
And how you kind of built this up to get to where you're at today. So let's start. And thank you again, Brooke.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. So little history about me. I've been in the business since I basically was born. My father is the principal broker owner, but you know I've been in real estate my whole life, if you will. I was the first official receptionist at 11 years old when he opened his Remax office, and you know, it's just I've been around a long time. And about 10 years ago, I came back to the area and you know, started taking over the operations of the office. And for the last probably 5 years, I've been the managing broker. And we've got 3 offices located about 30 minutes apart from each other. And yeah, it's been an interesting process, you know, trying to, my father built up a really great company. And I've stepped in to give him a little bit more of, you know, a retirement, if you will, whatever that looks like for realtors. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and we've taken the company to a whole new level in the last couple of years of us working together, and then most recently with me kind of taking it forward.
Beautiful. So when we talk operations, definitely one of the reasons why we have you on this call, because operations, many agents struggle with operating their business, right? So Remax Edge. And Remax is, you know, we're a business that helps people build their business. And when we talk operations, there's challenges. So if you could share with us, what has been the biggest challenge that you have faced and or your company has faced when building operations? Because I think agents struggle with that part. Can you just share what is that?
Sure. So it's kind of twofold when you think about the challenge with operations. When you think about the operations of really running a business, especially if you're trying to grow maybe as a team or as a company, one of the biggest challenges is going to be staffing. Oh my goodness, staffing is a challenge. Hiring correctly, making sure you have the right people and the right seats on the bus. But you know, the most common challenge, whether you're a solo agent or a team agent, is going to be consistency. You know, consistency with your actions, consistency with prospecting, consistency with your daily routine, consistency with time blocking. I mean, so what I have found is that the consistency in our efforts and our prospecting and our retention and whatnot has been one of the most important aspects of being successful here.
And just to piggyback off of that, so what has been the biggest success though, right? So that you've seen with agents, what's been the biggest success after guiding them? You know, you're running the operations. Sure. I'm sure your company wants to lead by example. You have a bunch of entrepreneurs in there, and your office is an award-winning office. So what's the biggest success that you've seen with them?
You know, I think the biggest success with the agents in our office. So I do a lot of one-on-one coaching with our agents and development. The thing that's unique about our coaching is that it's personalized. You know, other companies offer coaching, but they do it in sort of a checklist format. How many calls did you make? Did you write notes? How many people did you see? What's your pipeline look like? And that's not really an effective way to coach and develop. You know, I found the most effective way coaching and developing agents has been trying to get them to understand what their highest and best use is, and then what's their number one challenge with that. So, you know, success stories have been when people really embrace understanding that, you know, what's your biggest challenge, and then how can we work your way through that. Our most successful agents, what's interesting about us is we work by referral. So the majority of our office, we don't purchase leads. You know, we some people may have Zillow profiles and things like that, but we don't have a lead subscription relationship. So really honing in on those consistent efforts of prospecting and communicating. And then the truth is, the basis of it all is really believing in the relationship, and that everything we do constantly reinforces and deepens that relationship with our clients. And that works on my level as the brokerage, with my clients being agents, as well as my agents level with their clients being the people that buy and sell houses.
Got it. So we talk relationships, and the basis has been those referral relationships. What would be one thing if someone's just getting started in building those relationships and building those referrals? Let's start with that one first, because many times we talk about referral base, and the struggle with most agents is getting started, because with the referral base, usually it's something you've already built that relationship, and many agents are in need of getting that cash flow today. So if you would have to give somebody advice today just getting started to build that referral base, where would they get started?
So one of the hardest, I think, transitions from being in a non-real estate field, because we all have a database, we all have a system and a referral. I mean, the first thing, we all have a sphere is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. But one of the first things I recommend, especially with people that are brand new, is that very, very first step of writing out every single person that you know. All the the contact information of listing out every person that you've engaged with, all the people that you know, and doing that in sort of an open-ended fashion without trying to classify or quantify anybody in the beginning. So, I mean, that's kind of a preliminary step. The kind of step 1A that I would suggest is make sure you know what you're talking about in real estate. Just make sure that you've learned the contract, you've learned the market, that you're studying with your office, with your brokerage, because when you then go back to that database to pick up the phone and call them, you will have the confidence. So the long story short on this is work on building your confidence in the industry so that when you talk to people, you can be the real estate professional on the phone. I think that's been the biggest hurdle for most of the people who are, new in the business, at least in my office, is that they have a sphere, they have a database, they know who to call, but they're terrified to call because if someone says, "Tell me about the real estate market," they're going to be like, they don't want to fumble through it. So instead, that they'll spend a lot of time avoiding making phone calls because their confidence isn't there that they can answer that question. If someone asks a unique question about, months of inventory, or is it a buyer's market or a seller's market? And if they don't know that lingo, then it completely rocks their confidence. So starting out, that's my suggestion, is work on the things that would certainly build your confidence and knowledge of real estate.
Interesting. Yes. Calling your sphere and being able to be the local market expert, or, being that media station for someone to tune into and be able to consistently follow up with these folks definitely helps. And it's refreshing to hear that, because a lot of times when we talk referral base, people just don't know where to get started. So which leads me to, what are the 5 activities that when we're talking lead generation, you don't necessarily hit 5, but if you can give me around those calls. So you already gave an example of market updates. So if I called Sally, who's my Aunt Sally, if I'm calling Aunt Sally, I'm calling her on a market update, that could possibly generate a lead. Give me a couple more lead generation sources, even around referral base. What are 2 other things that agents should do when trying to work by referral only?
I'll give you the most powerful thing you can call and ask somebody.
Please, yeah.
Is there anything I can do for you?
Anything I can do for you? Mm-hmm.
Most simple, but easiest phone call to make. Because if you think about it, And be prepared, because I gave one of my new agents this advice, and they called and the person took them up on it, and they were like, my son actually needs a ride to work. Would you be able to do? But nevertheless, I mean, they serve that relationship, and that was the entire point. But the most powerful question that you can call and ask somebody is there anything I can do for you? And, people know what we do most of the time. And, that can be answered in so many different ways. It can be answered, if someone's doing something in their house, it can be referring them to a contractor or someone that can help support them. If they're going through a hard time or maybe a transition in life, you can learn about what they're experiencing again by just asking such a simple question. And I think that, a piece of advice, like you're actually leading to it quite well, is having reasons to call people. That's another huge hurdle for people, is that they stare at that phone and they're like, I'm gonna do it, but I just don't know what to say. So that's why I always suggest calling people and asking them that, because the truth is, again, going back to what I said about confidence, building your confidence in the phone calls and building your confidence with your network so that you are constantly and consistently making those touches to people come from not being afraid to get on the phone, right?
100%.
So if you call and you ask somebody, what can I do for you? It just helps deepen that relationship, and it makes those calls so much easier and consistent. So then you go back to your list of the market update, or, there's certain ways. It kind of depends on how assertive you want to be in the conversation of, if you're researching their particular neighborhood and you want to call someone specifically and say, this has been a very high price point. This is a very good neighborhood. There's a lot of interest. That's on the selling side, as well as reaching out to people on the buying side. People, are you tired of renting? How familiar are you with the home buying process? So on and so forth. But I think each person has to craft that list of, like you said, maybe 4 to 5 reasons to call people. But like I said, the home run easiest one is there anything I can do for you? Especially right now. Given the circumstance right now, it's not the greatest time to call them up and say, hey, the real estate market is booming. It's such an important time, especially in acknowledging all the things that are going on, across the world as well as across the nation. It's just calling people and asking them the simple question of, how are you? How are you doing? And it really does end up resulting in deepening those relationships, which is ideally what we're trying to get to, which results in referrals.
Yeah, so now you talked about calling your sphere, and just to be clear, for some people that have joined us a little late in this call, you were talking about working by referral, and we were clearing up what that meant, because a lot of senior agents say that to some of those that are just getting started, and then it's like the analysis paralysis of the newer agents. I want to work by referral, that's my goal, but how can I work by referral when I'm not proven into the marketplace yet? So I just want to clear that up with our agents here. We're talking about Sphere, reaching out to Sphere, saying, hey, how are you? Is there anything I can do for you? And now let's kind of move past that a little bit. It's still on the same topic. So you've called them. What other ways, after you've called them, to stay in front of these customers are you or your team doing to stay in front of these customers? Because we know there's a lot of methods that have we used in the past, down to the quote unquote the pop buys, to now today. And tell us what's working, what's not working. Is it all working? What works?
Sure. One final point on that phone call about, and then we'll move forward, but about calling them and asking if they can do anything for you. Have you ever noticed the quid pro quo when you ask somebody, how are you? And they're like, I'm good. How are you? So that actually works the same way when you call and ask somebody that. When you call and you say, is there anything I can do for you? And they're like, well, no, we're good. Is there anything I can do for you? And that's when you can say, hey, and then you can go into that explanation that you work by referral. If you know anybody who's looking to buy or sell real estate, I'm more than happy to help you. So there's a way to turn it into a prospecting call when you lead with something so simple as, is there anything I can do for you? So there is a point to it. I don't want you to think it's just a gentle lead there.
Yeah.
But the follow up and follow through of those relationships, I think, is definitely one thing that's really important right now, is that we meet people where they are. You don't have you ever worked with happens a lot, agent to agent, but you work with an agent that only likes to text, and you want to call them and talk about something, and you call them and they don't answer, and then they text you right back. A little frustrating. We could solve this a lot faster on the phone. But the point is that, even with agents, even with clients, you really have to meet them where they are. So if your people are into texting, if they're into, DMing on Instagram, if they are into Facebook Messenger, like, it's important that we follow up with people in that particular fashion. But going back to the prospecting techniques that work, I mean, face to
Brooke,
face.
can you, I hate to interrupt, but I want to make sure the agents got that point there, or anybody who's listening to our meeting here, meet them where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say meet them where they're at, we are in a very diverse community in Brooklyn and Staten Island, New York, and people use a lot of different social medias that might not be known in other spots, right? Whether it's someone's using YouTube, WhatsApp, WeChat, Instagram, LinkedIn, each channel is a little bit different. So I just want to make sure I emphasize what Brooke is saying. Meet them where they're at. It's your sphere. So if your sphere is on these different channels, you need to be there. You don't have, and I personally just want to add, you don't have to be a guru. You don't have to be the Facebook marketer, the YouTube marketer. It's just, if they're there, you should be there. So that was an excellent point, Brooke. So continue on now. I just want to highlight that point, because so many people are just like, where do I get started? Do I do a Facebook business page? Do I do a personal page? I think this is what we're focusing on. Just do something to subscribe to where your people are at, and it doesn't have to be so high level, because they're going to see you there.
Yeah. And I think that that's an organic process that grows. Like on day one in your business, you don't have to go and set up an account on all of these platforms. I think you're right. Like, don't do the analysis paralysis thing where you think to yourself, like, oh God, I got to get it right the first day. I gotta have a Facebook business page, and my profile's got to be updated. I got to be on LinkedIn and YouTube and Insta and all these different places. Like, you can organically grow into that to meet them where they are, but just make sure that you're listening and paying attention to where they are. But yeah, I mean, I think that the other prospecting activities, I mean, nothing is going to ever beat the face-to-face, that's really the goal. And I think that, and this is debatable right now, especially given kind of what we're in here with Zoom. And I don't know about y'all's success with having appointments digitally. I know you guys have been kind of locked down right now, but I don't know if you've been using these platforms to connect with clients and discuss kind of future business. We've seen some success with that. I still don't think that I'm still an in-person advocate, just because I think that tone and body language and it's just incredibly important on how you connect with people. But the traditional items of, I mean, I've got my handwritten notes right here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a note girl. Phone calls, notes, meeting people on the social media platforms that they are. I've done postal pop-bys during this time frame, where I actually mail something. I wish I had one right here, but I don't. Actually mail them to people, and it's got like a big card in it. And I think I sent 2 little like tea bags in one of them this time. And then I sent a bookmark, and what was the other? I did something else as well. But, just touching people. And the point is that the best follow-up is just, it all comes back to the one mission and purpose, which is building relationships. And I think it's just important that you constantly find ways to build relationships. And I think, sometimes I use the analogy of like your, someone that you're really close to, like your best friend. So if you wanted to show your best friend how you felt about them, or that you cared about them, you would do what? You would call them occasionally to check in with them. You'd probably like their posts on Facebook and make comments on there. You would want to see them face to face because they're your best friend, right? So you would make an effort to do that. When it's their birthday, you would want to send them a birthday card and acknowledge that. So if that's the kind of model that we're going for, why wouldn't we apply all of those same tactics to our database? It's that simple. And then, obviously you can't have, I don't know how large your database is. I just realized yesterday mine was 695 people. Got to pare that down a little bit. But, you can't be best friends with all of those people, but you can certainly pick your top people and really focus on that high level activity. But that's something I think about with it. I don't know if that kind of answers your question, but.
Oh, for sure. Just highlighting something in what you just mentioned about engaging with the sphere or those in your database, the have mets and haven't met. What's interesting when people get on social media, what I see is a lot of, passive prospecting. What that means is, that someone posts something, and if they connect it with a prospect, whether it's a cute picture or it's a cool picture of you just jogging by the water, that's great. But I think a big point, that the big aha for me, what you just said, Brooke, was if you're not actually liking and commenting on someone else's, it's the human nature. It says the law of reciprocity, right? If you like my stuff and comment on my stuff, if you engage in my stuff, I engage in your stuff. So I thought that was a big highlight for me just now, and hopefully that was aha for agents, that when they're starting to get on these platforms or use it, they've got to like and comment and be genuine, right? So don't just like, because if you're the liker, then it becomes you're the auto liker, right? In the social media, like, oh yeah, if I put one up, Joe's going to give me the auto like, or Sally's going to give me the auto like. So I think it was a very good point though, Brooke, when you're prospecting or engaging with your sphere, you have to engage, because it's a law of reciprocity. If I give you something, then maybe you give me something. So continue. Yeah, those were very good points when we're talking. Especially we have a lot of agents, including our own office, who does work with leads business, and that's another funnel in our business. But certainly during these times, obviously the hard costs of communicating with your sphere are so much lower than buying or investing in these lead opportunities. So this is a very important topic, especially as we come out of this, where people are just going to feel like it's hard to invest in something like a leads program.
Yeah.
So very good topics.
Yeah, there's kind of two other things that come out of that. And the first is that understanding that algorithms and the back end on how these platforms work is that, so these are social media platforms, right? And that word social, it indicates that there's a relationship involved. So it's important that you do show these platforms that you have a relationship back and forth. So they talk about the algorithms with Facebook often, and Facebook favors. So first of all, if you're going on and you're engaging in someone's post and you're liking it, Facebook gives you like a 1. If you go on there and you're engaging on someone's post and you make a short, like a fist bump emoji comment, Facebook gives you like a 5. If you go on to someone's post and you like it and you write a sentence as a comment, Facebook gives you like a 10. So then what that ends up happening is, and I can't speak to great detail on this, but I know it generally enough to help, is that Facebook then will serve up your content to that person on a more regular basis. Because we've all logged into social media and we've seen sort of a limited feed of, we don't see all of our friends' posts because it's the people that we engage with the most. So that's the first point. I mean, when you engage with people's posts, you need to make sure that it's more than just a like. And honestly, if the more that you can come up with a personalized comment back, Facebook favors that. The second point to that is I genuinely encourage you to build a time block into your schedule that is for engagement only. It is not the mindless scrolling on social media. It is that you are purposely going to your social media platforms to engage with people in your database or prospects or whatnot. And that's like a business function. Like you are literally going, not just because you want to like the puppy picture, but you want to make a comment about how Labradoodles are your favorite dog too. Whatever. So just 2 points that came out of that.
Very powerful points. Very powerful points for those that didn't know that. I would imagine, right, that almost every single platform is using some sort of algorithm to, as you said, serve up content to the right people with the right messages. And when I say right, meaning if Sally likes Labradoodles and you engage with Sally because she's a Labradoodle lover, then boom, they're going to continue serving up the two because they're thinking, oh, wow, these people have some commonalities here. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to find other people that are like-minded within that group between the both of them. And then we're going to serve up those content pieces. So excellent point. And just to be clear with everybody, I'll speak for myself, and it sounds like you mentioned the same. We're not social media gurus, but I think this is just good enough to get started. And that's really what I want to share with people here is that this is not some high level. This is just to get started so that people are aware and not disappointed, by the way, Brooke, because I think that's a lot of agents become disappointed because they put that cool picture and they're like, oh my gosh, nobody liked it. It's because maybe that's the last time you put a picture up was like a month ago. And I think also people need to be aware of link outs, right? So putting a YouTube video, there's a penalty for that. Mm-hmm. Google owns YouTube and Facebook is not an owner of Google. So they kind of don't allow YouTube to go to the top when people post it. And people are so disappointed when they see a YouTube video posted, like, oh, how come nobody watched that video? It's because Facebook doesn't want to serve out content that's going to take people off the platform. Mm-hmm. So excellent points. And, I'd like to continue furthering that topic because I do believe that I shared this yesterday with our group. I share it quite often. This is a finding maybe about a month or two ago about LinkedIn, and it proves the sphere. And I'd love for you to give you your feedback on that. It proves that your sphere is on different channels, because I was on LinkedIn and I've been posting some videos and a little bit of content, like very, very little, but just enough, just as you said, just enough. And I was talking to a friend of mine, like maybe a month after I got started with putting more content on LinkedIn. And a friend of mine said, hey man, I like your video. And the guy went really deep into what I said in the video, and he's not in the real estate space. And I says, whoa, wow, you watched that video? And he's like, yeah. I thought it was very interesting. It captured my eye and I watched it. The moral of the story is that this was somebody from my sphere, and he is not a guy that's on Facebook, but he's a guy that's on LinkedIn for whatever reason. I'm not analyzing the stats. I'm no back office marketer, but can you tell us about the different channels? Because it sounds like you sound like a Facebook, Instagram. Well, from what I know of you a little bit, is that you're Facebook ninja, Instagram ninja. So, can you talk to some of the other platforms that you might have used, or even talk about email campaigns? This way we can kind of just wrap up this lead generation topic, which I think is so important for our agents to understand. It's not just one channel. It's just get to the basics and get it done consistently. That's what's coming up for me. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, absolutely. And to talk about the separate platforms, the interesting thing about like Facebook, for example, is Facebook favors its own native video. So like Michael was talking about uploading something to YouTube, Facebook's like, but Facebook favors live video, first of all, like as like the creme de la creme. And then if you upload something directly to Facebook, that's kind of their number two. And then it trickles down from there. But, a piece of advice about content creating is to repurpose it over the multiple platforms. You can create one video and repurpose it to, IGTV, which connects to Instagram. You can upload it to a YouTube channel, and all of those platforms have different audiences. Some of it, cross pollinates, if you will, but we primarily focus on we primarily focus on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and then we use BombBomb email campaigns. We've used like a MailChimp email platform as well. So we really do have like a holistic roundabout use. LinkedIn is something that's kind of, it's the sniper platform that's been hanging out there, for a little bit. It's kind of, you're either on it or you aren't on it kind of thing. Like everybody has a profile on it, right? Because we all put our resume on there one day, a million years ago. But there's another, again, I go down to, and we may differ a little bit on this opinion, but, we try to keep it, we want to be masters at a few platforms. So we've really focused on Facebook, and then we're actually building out our Instagram business channel or page right now, profile. Got to get the words right here. And that's been something, of interest recently. But yeah, I mean, I think I I find that a lot of agents get overwhelmed by the multiple platforms. And, like for example, an agent will come in and ask me, "Do we need to be on Twitter? Do I need to be on Twitter?" And I'm like, "Do you go on Twitter?" They're like, "No." And I said, "Well, then you don't need to be on Twitter. If, if you're not going to go talk on Twitter and actually, throw your voice into the void that I feel like Twitter is, then don't feel like you have to be there." And if, having a profile, it's kind of like, remember when we used to have blogs, like blogs were the thing? There's nothing worse than going back to a blog that hasn't been posted on since 2014.
Oof, I've
Ugh,
seen that. Yes.
so painful. It's just like a business page too, is that, a real estate business page, when you go out there and people have content on it, maintain.
So
It's
now
all,
you mentioned phones first. So would you say that email second or Facebook second? What would you say? Let's say we had to go in order a little bit. Phones first, like picking up the phone and meet them where they're at, whether it's text message or. But what's the next thing? So you say phones. Would you say email? Would you say social media?
social media
Social media, and then email.
and then email.
So in the body of the email, a lot of agents get caught up in the should I hire a service to write out the content of the email? And I'd like to hear what you think of that. In those emails, what's in those emails? Is there link outs to something? Is there a video in it? Is there what content is in those emails that you're sending to people?
So me personally, it's an interesting cycle that I do. So again, I generate my content on social media, and then when I go to email, basically, I've learned that BombBomb, while I love it with the video content, I'm big into video. With the video content, the email load is a little bit heavy coming from BombBomb. So now basically what I do is I have a screenshot image that
I think we
recycles
lost we
back.
lost you for a second. What'd you say again? You have a what?
So I basically have a screenshot image of the video that I've done, and it recycles them back into Facebook to watch the video. So
Interesting.
yeah, and the content that I write in the blurb of the email is pretty minimal. My point is to get them to watch the video, is not to read something as much as to actually go back and watch the video.
Excellent. So let me recap for a second. This way I've got
Mhm.
the right interpretation. So you've got a video on Facebook.
Mhm.
Then if folks are not watching it there, or they might have caught it there, you're sending an email out to folks. In the email, there's a screenshot of the actual, or a thumbnail.
Yep.
And then behind the thumbnail, if they click the thumbnail, is that what happens? They click the thumbnail, that'll forward back to Facebook, which has the video that you've uploaded.
Yes. Yep.
Excellent. Hopefully that was helpful to our agents as well.
And if the video is public, they don't have to log in. That's another.
Really? Okay, that's good. I gotta write that down. So if you post a video, you'll embed the Facebook link into
Mhm.
the body of the email. Hey, check out this video. They think they're clicking on the video there. They click on it, but then it links out to Facebook.
Right.
But they do need Facebook though. But even if it's public,
No, they can.
So wow, that's a big aha even for me, Brooke.
Yeah. Yeah. So
if
when
it's a
you
public
publish
video,
Yeah, when you publish a video on Facebook, if it's public, the security settings will tell you that anyone on or off Facebook can see it. So you know how it's annoying when you click on something and it takes you to Facebook and then it wants you to log
Firewall.
in through the browser? It's so annoying. So yes, this is how you circumvent that. The other thing is it aggregates all of your views into one place. So it's not like you have a bunch of views on this platform and then I'm seeing how many people are truly seeing it just on my one platform. But again, it's repurposing it in a couple of different ways. And then now the newest thing is that we're repurposing most of that content onto IGTV because the videos are longer than Instagram allows. But then we can put the preview on Instagram. But it's all one video. I mean, that's the interesting part. Is that
right. And you have different channels. So
right.
Hopefully, this has been really insightful. it's interesting that you got the call, you meet them where they're at. So your main focus is Facebook. So you got Sally, who you haven't spoken to in 2 years, and Sally's like, "Oh, you on Facebook?" "Yeah, I'm on Facebook." You get her on Facebook. She sees a little bit about your life. You'll post some interesting content, and if she doesn't get you there, she's going to get you the email purpose back to Facebook to engage more. So to keep on keeping that engagement piece up, which is pretty amazing. And basically all I'm hearing here is mostly free, free, free. And
Mm-hmm.
I love it because that's, it's been my mantra, even though we bought a ton of leads and we still do. It's been my mantra though, for agents looking to build their business that don't want to invest and don't want to do right. They could do something just like this to engage in their sphere.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in you diversify what you do to build your practice. I think things like this will quote unquote raise capital, right? Because this is a free, it's like you can't go to the venture capitals to raise capital, then do something like this because you can communicate, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
To really it's so simplified, which is pretty amazing. Is if you could just get people in these 3 different channels, it is rinse and repeat. That's what all I'm hearing is rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Absolutely. And we know what's interesting, Brooke, what's really coming for me is they're going to be engaging in your personal life too, or whatever you post. So this way is also something more to talk about. If you get on the phone with Sally, who is not really your close friend, but you might have posted something, I don't know, you went for a walk in the park and you saw an interesting bird, I don't know. And when you get on the phone, I bet you, because law of reciprocity, you're engaging with her. Mm-hmm. She calls you, you call her, and she's going to say, "Hey, Brooke, I noticed that you saw that cool looking bird. That was cool that you posted that video." Yeah. So that was great. That was great. So, yeah. So as we get down to future, right, because we kind of in the present, mm-hmm. With stay-at-home stuff, we talked a lot about video. I just want to be clear that, so this we won't have to go back to this topic. You could do this all at home. Even if you're at stay-at-home, you can do this all at home. So I want to be clear with our audience that you can do this at home. And that's why I love that you brought up this topic, because many agents are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm kind of stuck. I don't know what to do. I can't," because in New York, actually, we couldn't prospect. We couldn't call unsolicited people. We couldn't do unsolicited calls. Okay. But you could have did this, and you still can, by the way, which is phenomenal. So what I want to talk about as we just wrap up this present and then go into future is budgeting. So we talked about free, though. Can you just give me a simple version of your guiding and coaching agents and yourself and your company, rather? Mm-hmm. So what would you say budget model? How do you handle the financial aspect of the business? What would you say, what percentage of the money should be invested back into their business? What percentage? And by the way, just FYI, I always like to have this disclaimer. This is Brooke's opinion. This is her opinion. She's not a financial consultant that I know of. This is just based on experience. This is not financial advice, and you should make your own interpretation of what you should invest back into your business. So go ahead, Brooke.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, what's interesting, the answer to that question would have been a lot different 10 years ago. The answer to that question would have been like 30% or something back into your business. And I mean, honestly, I don't know that I have a true calculated percentage, but I mean, I would kind of, because of the freeness of all of these like platforms and how you can do so much on our own with social media right now, I don't know that I can give you a percentage, maybe 10%, something to that extent. I mean, you have to plan to invest in the business, but what I do caution you, and again, I'm not a financial planner, but just as a caution from the my perspective, is that just because you're spending money doesn't mean that you are spending it on the right things. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that throwing money at something, it means that it's successful. So here's an interesting scenario in my area here. There's a boutique firm just down the road that has an in-house marketing, whatever. They hired a videographer. They put out highly produced content. Highly produced. I mean, cuts and background music, and they go to these places and they feature these businesses, and they put out probably one really highly produced video every 2 weeks, maybe. And when you look at their engagement, which to me, engagement is the ROI on video, right? They have like 3 likes. Whereas I did a completely free, Facebook Live, it took me 7 minutes because that's how long the video was. So let's be honest, it took me 9 because I had to set up my tripod and whatever. 9 minutes, and I get 40 likes and 6 shares. Like, that's an ROI. It cost me nothing. I used my iPhone. It cost me a $27 tripod looking thing that I carry around with me everywhere, you know? Like, so minimal investment. But people think, for example, these people down the street think that they're spending, I mean, they've got an employee that's doing high level video production. I'm sure they've got super fancy cameras and super fancy lights and a whole studio. Like, I've got a $60 editing software that I use for my other videos. I've got an iPhone 11, and I mean, it's just really, really minimal. So, you know, I think with this type of content, really leveraging when you do anything, looking at the ROI on so the return on your time and the investment. And again, when we're talking about the social media aspect of things, the engagement factor is so incredibly important. So I started a series on Mondays, and it was, I think this past Monday was my 118th week in a row of doing these. And what's so fascinating is, again, the first half of them were actually recorded videos, and then now the second half of them have been Facebook Lives. People stop me in the grocery store and say, hey, I saw your video on Monday. Oh my God, I love it. That was so awesome. That's just what I needed to hear. Now, my content is motivational or whatever in nature, but it is incredible. This didn't cost me anything. So back to the original question, I mean, yes, there was a little bit of hard cost in getting, you know, I've got a light sitting right here. You know, and maybe all in all, I spent $200 on all of my equipment to get all of this engagement. So kind of a long answer to a short question, but.
No, again, very insightful, because many real estate business owners, and actually, Brooke, you know what, this was also targeted towards small businesses in our area as well. I think this is a byproduct of what entrepreneurs do is they also think that they spend the money, they fix the I wouldn't say the problem, but yeah, the problem of lead generation, getting more customers, the lead conversion. I think just people throw money at it before thinking about, okay, well, what can I do first? What action steps without investing the money? And I think there was an excellent point, because it's true. Prior to this, Brooke, you know, I've been a veteran in this business. I started in 2000, and yeah, it was a different story back then, but it's actually still one and the same. You still had the phone back then as well. You know, the phone still existed. So you could reach out to people. You can go to their house and say hello. But now today, as you mentioned with social media, you can now have a large scale audience. And I think now today, more than anything, it's really about the content, about what you say. And that's really where you're going to earn your worth. So excellent point. And what do you think about, you know, teams and leverage? And then I've got one more question, and then we'll open it up for the agents. You know, the future of the business, in terms of whether it's an assistant, whether it's team. I've got two questions. It's this way you can cap it. So future of teams and business, whether it's an assistant or a large scale team. And then of course, just, you know, what does the real estate business look like post COVID, you know, technology? Like, what does it look like? Just give me your perception of that. So I know I give you two tough ones or two heavy ones, but I know you can handle it.
Yeah. So the team question, I think teams are here to stay. Teams are constantly forming.
And what are the structures of it? That's actually kind of what I wanted to share with our audience. You know, is it the team that's got like 10, 15 people that, you know, answer to this one team leader and they're just running around? And we've seen that work as well. But, you know, we want the person who's running the team to be profitable. Mm-hmm. So what do you see? What dynamics of a team? What do you think? Just give me one setup that you believe is going to be here to stay for long term and the most profitable one to run.
So what's interesting is I've kind of run a model on this. I tell you the most profitable with the team leader still being engaged in the business is really it's a 3-person team. It's a team leader, it's a team member, and then there's like an admin that does all of the support. Now, that's not leveraging the team leader out of the business. I mean, they're still going to have to be working. I don't personally believe in the rainmaker model, where you've got the team leader that's up here, and then you've got everybody else who's really doing the business. It's a difficult thing unless that's the whole company, you know. But as we've got several teams in our office, the team leaders are still very active in the business. But when push comes to shove to the amount of money that you have to pay out for staff and support, as well as being able to leverage, time and energy. And because here's the caveat to having a large team. The larger your team, the greater your management responsibilities are, So finding that balance really, at least here, in my opinion, it's been about a 3-person team that really has the best.
Well, Brooke, a lot of the agents on this call, and many people in the local market, I've shared my story personally, and it's so funny when you're talking about the study. Maybe I wish you were my coach years back then, when I was running the team. The overall, with energy exuded investment, it was really a 4-person team. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed scaling the team. I did, but that 4-person team, we just literally had 2 assistants. One virtual, one, who's now the manager, who Josephine. Mm-hmm. She was actually my assistant, and now she's the broker manager. And it's interesting that first level was all around, had really good balance and profitability. Balance meaning I had literally nights and weekends off. The staff that was there felt, was just very close. But then when we scaled a little bit bigger, it became more challenging, and then we got. But what did work though? I would say the third year, it was still, it was 8 agents, mm-hmm. And that was a really well-oiled machine. So once we got to 8, I think it was that right in the middle point was over hiring, and not knowing the expenses, the hard costs. So it's so funny that you brought that up. If you look at the large scale team, the revenue that we produced in the large scale team versus the small, margin-wise, it was roughly the same, mm-hmm. And we did double the revenue with the large-scale team, but the net revenue was the same as the smaller team. And by the way, Brooke, spot on, because then we'll just get it right into future. Spot on. It was a lot of management, it was a lot of work to make basically the same money. So it was nice to win the big trophy, but I think it's so funny that you weren't part of that. You weren't part of that program, but it's just in another state, another town, and You're seeing as a coach, as a leader of your office, that you're seeing that as the most effective. And Brooke, the reason why I share that with you is when I share with agents what I believe that they should do in order to start a real profitable, scalable, and I'm going to put this mentally, draining. I think that keep it lean and mean, and then that's really where you're going to see the piece. Scalability is great. If you have the nerve and the wherewithal and want to do it, for sure, if you keep that speed going, I think that's going to be really, really profitable, but the margins will be like this. So boom, excellent point. I'm sorry. I got excited over that, Brooke, because I don't always get to share with someone else the story, and actually, we did not prep for that at all. And you just touched on that. And it's amazing because it's what I share in my story. It's my mission when I coach and train agents to say, hey, I've actually done this before and quite successfully. And I've had the heartache. That second year, Brooke, that I ran the team, there's a lot of heartache. I mean, I called it business broke. Basically 7-figure revenue, but I was basically business broke. And I've shared my story multiple times that second year. And then I compare third year and first year. Wow, amazing. Third year, I netted more, grew more revenue. But if you look at comparatively the first year, it was actually way more balanced. So sorry, I got excited. Let's move on to more future topics. Just as we wrap this up. So future, where do you see this all going? I know it's a broad topic, but what's near and dear to your heart? What do you see in the future, right? So we talk about virtual tours, self-driving cars, self-showing homes. Like, what do you see in the next 5 to 10 years in our industry? Many people have said multiple times that real estate agents are going away. I don't believe that, but what do you believe will, in like a minute synopsis. Where do you see this going?
I mean, truth be told, is that we will never be kicked out of the process. This is still an emotional process, and I don't care who says that they think you can automate this. You cannot automate human beings. It's not, you can't automate the care and the problem solving that comes out of the industry. So we're not going anywhere. I do think that coming out like in a future aspect, but maybe a little bit more in the near term, that we're going to leverage some serious efficiencies out of this process. So Virginia was it was a long story, but we weren't shut down. So we were able to work. But I don't know how you guys are with buyers. I feel like this might be pretty traditional or global across the real estate industry, but buyers like to just look. Buyers like to go and window shop and things that don't meet their needs or their criteria or whatnot, but they're like, oh, but it's so pretty. Let's go look at it. Well, gone are those days. Gone are those days that because we had such limited showings, we had to get real specific, with being able to see property, and you had to be very, very interested to be able to get into a property. So I'm really hopeful that we're going to have some serious efficiencies coming out of this, where agents now know how to have that conversation and say, no, Mr. Buyer, we're not going to look at that house that's outside of your price range, that's in another neighborhood that you've already said you're not interested in, just because you want to see it, and that will help us be a little bit more streamlined. But, I think that in the future, just moving forward, we are still going to be an essential part of this process. And the technology is going to be there to help us do it better and faster and cleaner. I mean, think about who would have thought, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that we would not be using fax machines, actually joking about using fax machines, and then completely using electronic signatures. It didn't wipe us out of the process, but it sure made it a lot easier to get things done faster or more efficiently, because you're not driving across town with a packet to get somebody to sign it to have a wet signature. So it's going to be that in 5 to 10 years. Well, what is that going to look like? I don't know, but I still think that we'll be a part of the process.
Very good, very good. So guys, I'm just going to run over to the questions portion over here. So make sure you ask your questions while I'm looking at it. So actually May Lan asked the same question. What do you think it's going to look like in 2 years? And okay, I'll ask this question. So she had asked, I guess, if an agent is asking a commission in an office, let's say, because we're not allowed to discuss commissions on a call like this, but let's say they were asking a commission that's here, and or rather one agent went in and asked a commission that's over here, and then in the same office, and another commission came over here. What's your advice to that agent? I guess the person's question is more, do they cut their commission? Should they go down to that level? What do you do, or what do you advise, especially from within the same office?
Sure. That's an interesting question. I would be curious as to why one is coming in at a different percentage than another. We're pretty supportive of not cutting commission, and oftentimes that happens because of a relationship, not because of a standard of doing business that way. There's some politically correct responses to that, and then there's some not so politically correct. So we'll stay with the politically correct, since it would be in the same office. Ultimately, I think that my response to that would just be, we're all entrepreneurs, even though we work for the same company, and we make decisions to run our business different ways. And I feel that my value garners the X percent versus, and I can't speak to this person and why they're willing to do it at less, but I know that I'm going to provide you X percent of value, and that's who I am, and just kind of standing by that. I think that what's dangerous about that, and what's dangerous about the commission cutters, just in a general sense, is they devalue the whole industry. Just on a global perspective, because we've got some people in the area here that's their MO, and then they'll go in and just undercut. Well, it's bad for everybody. It devalues our value in business as realtors. And
I think you answered it quite well, and very professionally, saying, "Hey, we're entrepreneurs. I can't speak for that other person. Yes, we work in the same office. Our office is fantastic. We got this, 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 and this, but I operate my business like that." So I think that was a great answer. Thanks,
yeah.
Brooke. Greg, I see, Greg, you have your hand up. Is that a mistake, or you have a question, Greg Donato? Greg, you're
I
just
have to
unmuted.
unmute. Okay,
Yep.
I must
Go ahead, Greg.
unmute. Yeah, I think that was a perfect answer. It's really all about your value package, and I think everyone who's competing for a seller, and it's all about your relationships with that seller and your follow-up and your value package. So it's just like going to one store and buying the same product. If you have a better relationship with that store owner, or you like to do work with that particular location, then you'll win it. So that's really what it's all about, and you get back to the relationship issue, it's all about relationships,
Mm-hmm.
so
That's correct.
it's a competition, just like everything else, just like every retail store competes with one another. You're competing against other people as well.
Great. Well, Greg, thank you very much. Brooke, we don't have any more time for questions. I just have one question for you.
Sure.
What advice would you give to everyone in our audience? I'm just going to just leave you with that. What would you give? What advice would you give?
Oh, wow. That's a broad statement.
It is. I just figured, you know what?
Just wide open.
No, listen, you're running your own show over there. So I figured what if you had to say right now, what would you say?
I mean, the most important thing that I think advice wise is that this isn't new. We've been through this before. We've been through changes in the market. We'll go through them again. And the thing what's so fascinating when you look at any of the gurus out there that talk to you about how to make it through a downshift, right at the beginning of this, I was reading Gary Keller's book Shift, and I was, which is so ironic, but and you listen to Brian Buffini, or you listen to economic forecasts and whatnot, and they all say the exact same thing. The way that you protect yourself through a market shift is through relationships. And we can always control that. So there's no reason to get down on ourselves about something that we're experiencing, or not being able to work, or wondering what's going to happen with the future of real estate, because what we can control is our relationships. So as long as we stay positive and we keep focusing on building and deepening relationships, the business will follow. So that's my blanket piece of advice.
Well, yeah, I think it was great. It's something we've been sharing within the office, and I love how you opened up with that by saying we've been through this before. As an industry, transition is always a part of our industry. Relationships matter. So, don't be so alarmed or fearful, because we've gotten through so many transitional periods. So, Brooke, I really want to thank you for your time. This has been phenomenal. I've even learned quite a few things on here myself, and I know the agents, I'm sure, picked up some nuggets. So thank you for sharing with us and spending your time. Have a good one. Stay safe, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thank you, Brooke.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.